Hello, people. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tyler, and this is my May wrap-up. And yeah, I'm gonna do it vlog style again, despite last month's vlog wrap-up being over an hour long. That's absurd. But I like doing it, so I'm gonna do it again. It's May 3rd, and I have read 3 books. And I just held off on recording this clip until I finished all of Heartstopper, so I can just do this little clip, say I read all volumes of Heartstopper that have been published, and then I caught up to where it is now on Webtoon. So I didn't read the physical real copies of Heartstopper, and I think there are some extra little goodies in there. I don't know what they are. I didn't actually read those, but I still marked them read on Goodreads because I can. Anyways, I gave all the rest of the volumes. Volume 1 I gave 4 stars. Volumes 2, 3, and 4 I gave 5 stars. They were more like 4.5 stars. But I felt like I needed to make it clear to myself, because that's really what my ratings are for when I go back to see a book, just to see how I feel about them. So I felt like I needed to differentiate for myself to know that the first one is just all right, while the rest are better, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about it. I enjoyed it. It's really cute. Nick and Charlie are precious. I liked the teacher ship that was going on in, I don't remember what chapter it is, where they're in Paris. The teacher chaperones have a little lovely moment that I thought was so cute and I really liked. They definitely get a little heavier as the series progresses. There is like eating disorder stuff and some self-harm and body issues as the story progresses. But the author is very good about giving trigger warnings at the beginning of the issues. If you read it on Webtoon, I don't know how the trigger warnings work in like physical copies. So maybe just be aware. I do know that she has the trigger warnings for each volume on her website though. So if that's something you're concerned about, you can do that. I will say my favorite thing about Alice Osman's like comic style is the way she writes dialogue over like multiple panels is so engaging to me. It's such a smart way of like making the panels feel very fluid from one place to another. The dialogue will carry like over multiple panels. And I just think it works so well. And I think it's so well crafted and smart. Instead of just having like 3 bubbles in one panel, sometimes it'll be like 3 bubbles that travel through the panels. And it's just brilliant. I love it. I think it's so smart and great. And it's like one of my favorite things when reading this. It's such a weird thing to get happy about. And I'm, you know, other people probably do it too. But it just really stood out to me while reading Heartstopper. I really, really liked that. Anyway, so I recommend it if you're looking for a cute little gay romance. Good morning. It is May 4th and I have finished my first audiobook of the month. I listened to When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut. I didn't like this very much. I picked this up from someone on Twitter. It was either Adam Serwer or Chris Hayes. I can't remember who. One of them talked about it on Twitter ages ago. It had been sitting on my TBR. And it seemed like an audiobook I would enjoy. So I had it on hold for a while. It finally checked out to me. It's a 6-hour audiobook, so I thought I was going to fly through it. I did not fly through it. It took me multiple days to listen to this book. I had to keep like going back and re-listening to stuff because I just could not hold on to the narrative. And it was not what I expected. This is much more hard science than I had anticipated. I expected this to be something more akin to like the Anthropocene Reviewed. I was expecting it to be like, here is a big scientific discovery. And I did expect a little bit of science to go with that. So I expected, you know, I don't know. This is the hydrogen bomb. This is how it was discovered. And then I expected there to be this big emotional thread of talking about how people couldn't accept this change, this big scientific change, as well as like how society responded to this change in the understanding of the world. That is kind of what I was expecting. That's not necessarily what this is. I won't say it's not that. There's definitely some like people trying to disprove these new discoveries. There was some of that going on. But that's not what this book really is. I think the closest it got to that was like that first chapter, which was about it was titled Prussian Blue, and it kind of touches on all these like threads of like discoveries that kind of all led up to some of the most destructive forces in World War II, which was kind of interesting, but I still had to keep going back and re-listening because there was just so much of it that I had a hard time just following and keeping track of what was being told to me. And this is like the first time I've had a book where like I had to go all the way down to like 1x speed because I just could not listen and hold on to the information, which is something that's really never happened to me when I listen to an audiobook. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts and I listen to almost exclusively nonfiction podcasts. So and I listened to all those at 1.5 speed. So that was a new experience. By the time it got to Schrodinger's chapters, there's like multiple chapters about Schrodinger and Heisenberg. I was done. I gave up on trying to follow and understand. I am not a hard science person. I am a soft social science girly. And once we started getting into quantum physics and like whether an atom is a wave or a particle and you can't know anything, my brain just started to melt out my ears. And then like by the halfway point, there was like some weird sexual stuff that was going on. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? So I just, by that point, I was like, I'm done. So like I finished it, but I did not have a good time. Yeah, I'm going to give it 2 stars because honestly, I kind of want to give it 1, but I'm willing to give it a buffer of being like, part of the issue was like, is just much more hard science than I anticipated. So that's like a me issue. And the other being like, maybe the audiobook wasn't a good way to consume this book. Maybe it would have been a better experience if I had read it. So I'll give it 2 and give it the benefit of the doubt. But I didn't have a good time listening to this. Hello, it is May something, May 5th. I have started and finished Across a Field of Starlight. Is that what it's called? Across a Field of Starlight. This checked out to me yesterday and I picked it up this morning before going out of town for the day, and I read the entire thing during the 4 hours of car travel. Why? I swear he follows me down here just to scream at me as soon as I start to record. I finished the whole thing. I'm gonna rate it 3 stars. I really don't have much to say. This is a YA graphic novel. It's sci-fi vibes. It's about like imperialist empire. There is a resistance movement fighting against them, and then there is like a neutral organization, and two youths from the neutral and the resistance organizations meet, and they become friends, and then some shenanigans ensue. So it's kind of, it's fine. It's not a romance at all. Like, those two youths don't fall in love. There's some trans representation in here that was nice. I personally just wasn't like super invested in the story, so I don't really have much to say. So that's it. Hello, it is May 8th and I finished Battle Royale. This is the only book I carried over from April. I started it near the end of April just because I knew I was going to need a little time to read it, because it's like 650 pages long or something insane. I gave it 4 stars. I am literally in the midst of editing a reading vlog I did with it from like 40% to the end. Lots of spoilers in there. So I'm going to try and do like a non-spoilery review here and direct people here if they want non-spoilers. Anyways, so Battle Royale is about, it's sort of some of the inspiration behind Hunger Games. So it's a class of 42 students, 9th graders, who are thrust onto an abandoned island and told to kill each other, and the last one left standing is the winner. It exists in like an alternate timeline. They live in the country of the Republic of Greater East Asia. It is like modern, what would be Japan. It may be some other places. I'm not 100% sure on that. And this thing, this killing of the students is called the program. And it's randomized, and they do it up to twice a year, I think. And it's always like one class of students, and they're forced to kill each other. What I really enjoyed about this part is like the internal struggles people had with whether they could trust someone or not, because they have this relationship of being in school together and wanting to trust, but also the tension of being like, this is a game and we're supposed to kill each other, and are they playing the game or are they not playing the game and I can trust them? So I found that to be really good. There are a lot of names in this, so I would really suggest that you do like character maps or whatever you do. That's not a thing I normally have ever done, really, and I really wish I had done it, because there are so many characters and a lot are interconnected, and they refer back to things that happened earlier in the game or refer back to things that happened before the game even started. And I really wish I had written things down, especially if you're reading in physical form, because you cannot search the book easily and find where that character had been previously mentioned. So I highly recommend, especially if you're reading it physically, to write shit down, because there are so many names. There are 42 students, and you see at least all of them once, because you see every kill in this book. It mainly follows Shuya and kind of him going through this game and the partnerships he makes, and like the friendships and stuff. But like I said, there are some other people that you follow a little more regularly, and then some of them you only see like once or twice. But you see everyone. There are a lot of names, so be aware. I think what was like the most, I don't want to say disappointing, but what I was missing from this book was I wanted a little more political information about the Republic. You hear stuff about like the small ways people rebel, and you do get like a little bit information. I feel like it's a little more in the beginning and then a little more at the end. And I wanted just more, because that's what, honestly, that's what intrigues me when I read like dystopian stuff. The like, I mean, I don't want to get like super gritty, but I want to know more about like how this fascist imperialist society works. I want that information, and there's not a lot in this. What I did get was interesting. There's just not a ton of it. And then the other thing is like because they're in ninth grade, so they're like 14, 15 years old, there is a lot of like crushes in this book. So many crushes in this book. You know, this girl likes him and he likes her and she likes some other guy and he's his best friend, yet he likes his girlfriend. Like, there's some stuff going on in here. And I wanted just like less of it. Like in Hunger Games, obviously like the love triangle thing is like a big pull because it's like YA or whatever. But in this, like, I didn't really want it or need it. There's like maybe like a little bit of a love romance thing going on in here. But it's not like a big piece or, I mean, obviously like it's kind of a big piece because it like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, it exists and I don't dislike that romance necessarily. But I could just do with less of it. Just less. Anyways, I honestly, I would have preferred to take some of that romance stuff and put it into like learning more about the Republic of Greater East Asia. Anyways, but I had a good time reading it. It's actually relatively straightforward for being 600 and some odd pages long. Besides being like a lot of names and just like a lot of connections, it's really not that difficult to read. And if I had taken notes from the start, it probably would have been an even easier read because I wouldn't have had to flip back and forth so much, or reread things so much. It's obviously translated, and I do feel like at times, like in certain battles and stuff, I must have been missing something. And like my biggest metaphor for what I feel like I'm missing is like, you know, in other languages, sometimes there's one word in English, but in another language, there's like 6 different words for that same thing, but they all have like a different meaning and they're all used in like a different context or whatever. But it all translates into English in one word. So you're missing that like extra information. And sometimes when reading some battles and some like conversations, I just felt like there must be some like cultural context that I am missing. So it would force me to read things a lot to be like, what actually happened here? So there's that too. But overall, like I said, had a good time. 4 stars. I'm glad I finally read it. I will be keeping my copy. I don't know if I'll reread it, but I had a good time. So, hello, it is May 12th. I just finished The Power by Naomi Alderman. And this one is hard to talk about. I have a lot of conflicted feelings on it. Overall, I really liked it. The beginning was so incredibly engaging, intriguing. Like, I just wanted to keep reading it when I first started it. Like, it grabbed me from the moment I started. As the book went on, I got a little, I don't know, I just got a little kind of like eked out, creeped out a little bit. But basically, women gain electrical powers, and it kind of follows the fallout of that. And the things I have a problem with, I can't really talk about without spoiling the book, and I don't want to do that. So it's like really difficult to say what my issues are. What I really liked about it, first I found the writing just to be really engaging, but it's also kind of written as like a historical text. So there is like lots of little multimedia bits and pieces. It starts and ends with some letters between 2 people. That the ending just had me like, like, and it's like broken into a couple parts over a couple years. But at the end of each part, there's like a little historic artifact that is explained. So like here is like, oh God, I don't know how well this is gonna focus. It's like a historic artifact and it kind of like ties into the story. So I really liked that stuff. I thought it was well written for the most part. The back half really was a roller coaster. It's told in multiple POVs, which sometimes I can have issue with. And I did have a little bit of an issue with it in this one. There were 4 main POVs. One was a girl named Allie, and her story has kind of like religious tones. There is Margot, who's like a politician, and hers is like a lot of the American political sphere with relation to what's going on. The third is a Nigerian journalist named Tunde. He's the only male perspective we follow. He was actually my favorite character, I think, through this whole book. His story was consistently the most interesting to me. See, like some of them were more interesting at points and then took like a deep nosedive. Or some were just kind of like, okay, and then maybe got a little bit interesting and then kind of just went back to, okay. And then the fourth one was Roxy, and I hated her POVs. Near the end, there's like a 20-page Roxy chapter, and I was like so close to the end, and I'm like, I just want to finish this book, but like, I don't want to read this Roxy chapter. Like, I was like 80% in, and I'm like, maybe I'm just gonna DNF this book because I don't want to read this chapter. So there are 2 things I can maybe kind of touch on without getting spoilery. One, it didn't really touch on like trans people. It really was just split into men and women. But like the way they get this electrical power is through like a physical body thing. It's called a skein. And it's like a physical organ on their body. So if it's gender connected, there should have been trans men that had it. This book was written in 2016, and it's not like trans people didn't exist in 2016, but maybe just was like not as in the forefront of the author's mind. So I don't know, I felt like that was something that was missing, and I kept thinking about at certain parts where like they briefly talked about like men that had the organ, but not because they were trans. It was just like a weird thing that they got. And I don't know, I felt like maybe there was something there that could have been interesting to explore. And the other issue I had was like the back half. There was definitely some times where I just felt like she was kind of the author was losing the point of the story she was trying to make. And I feel like overall she did kind of end up being able to tie it all together in a way that was mostly satisfying to me. But like that last half, I was just like, where is this going? What is the point? Where is this going? Not the whole time, but like, I don't know. It just kind of, as the book went on, it kind of got a little less page-turny for me. Kayla read this book in a vlog, her reading like an Aries vlog. She read this, and the way she described it was a 5-star concept and 3-star execution, and I kind of agree with that. I'm gonna give it 3.5, so that will get rounded up to 4 on Goodreads. But yeah, like, the concept is fascinating. It's just like, it kind of fell flat in some places. I don't know. It's the beginning is just such a good read that I feel like maybe it's worth recommending it to other people. Oh, but I will say there is a lot of like sexual assault stuff that goes on in this, that I really was not expecting, and was incredibly uncomfortable at points. So if that is something you are sensitive to, maybe look further into like content or trigger warnings. It's more than I would have anticipated, and there is one scene that was pretty rough. Like, I'm not gonna say it's like super graphic, but it's on the graphic side, like, oof. So yeah, I'm like of two minds of it, two minds about it, just because I did like it, but then I can also see, I do feel like there were some execution flaws in it, and it's just kind of hard to talk about because you don't want to spoil the book. Hello, it is May 13th, and I have finished another book. I finished The Storyteller by Dave Grohl. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I really don't have much to say about this book. It's not bad by any means. It's narrated by Dave Grohl. I think he's a wonderful storyteller, as the title suggests. But this really just didn't offer very much to me. I don't know if maybe I'm still just like in the vibe, the mood, the vibe for like funnier audiobooks. Like I'm just enjoying that more, so this is like kind of a different thing. I mean, there are definitely funny bits of the storyteller, but like he's a musician, so it's not it's not like a comedian telling their story and like, you know, has practice writing jokes, etc., etc. So, you know, it's fine. I don't have all that much to say about it, really. I mean, if you really like the Foo Fighters or Dave Grohl or Nirvana, there's some stories about Nirvana in there. Maybe you'll enjoy it. It just was like, okay for me. So, that's it. Hi, it is May 15th, I think. Let's double check. Yeah, it's May 15th, and I have finished Uzumaki by Junji Ito. This is a horror manga. I read it in 3 days. I started it Friday. It's Friday afternoon, I think, and it is Sunday just afternoon. So over the weekend, I read 600-page beast. I'm actually recording a vlog this weekend, so I talk about it in that as well. I just wanted to pop out and say I gave it 4 stars. The pacing just wasn't quite right for me, but I really, really liked the art style. Lots of creepy, gross body things going on, which apparently is just my cup of tea. So, 4 stars. Had a good time. Yeah. Good morning. It is May 20th, and I finished Bunny by Mona Awad last night right before bed, so you had to wait to get my thoughts. 3.5 stars, so rounded up to 4. It's split into 3 parts. The first part, I was really having a good time, really enjoying it. It was giving me a little bit of like secret history vibes because it is, it takes place at like an elite New England college. There's like a group of rich girls that are like very close, and then the narrator is like an outsider to that group, and through that part they're like kind of trying to get her to join their group. So it was just kind of reminding me of secret history, like, you know, New England elite college, weird group of friends. So really enjoyed that. There was a cliffhanger at the end of part 1 that I was like, holy shit. And then the first chapter of part 2 kind of made me want to DNF the book. Luckily, like, the like style of writing in that chapter is like purposefully opaque and dense. And like the rest of the book isn't necessarily written that way. But parts 2 and 3, I just didn't like as much. So this reminds me of a couple of books. So I already kind of touched on The Secret History, which is what the first part really reminds me of. It's obviously a very different book, and it's not like, I don't even know how to describe The Secret History. Like, it is not The Secret History, but that's like those vibes that it was giving me. But then it also kind of reminds me of We Ride Upon Sticks, which I read last year, which is unfortunately not a good thing for me. I know lots of people really like We Ride Upon Sticks, and that's also like a New England set book. Which is, and it's also supernatural, and it was definitely giving me those New England supernatural vibes through parts 2 and 3. So it kind of falls into that same problem that We Ride Upon Sticks had for me personally. Was I just want to read about the weird stuff. And it's just like strangely mild. Like there's weird things going on, but it's just kind of like, it's not ratcheted up enough for me, and there's just like so much flowery, pretty language that I'm just like, I don't care. I just want to read the weird stuff without having to get through layers and layers of metaphor. I'm just like, I honestly, while reading this, I'm like, there must be like, this book is probably saying something about being like creative in like the academic world. It's like desire for simultaneously wanting creative works and also needing it to fit within a box by doing it in an academic setting, because it's like a writing program that she's in. But like, I guess it's just not something I totally relate to. Like, I went to a liberal arts college, and I took one English class, and it was about graphic novels. And I wasn't writing or breaking down literature. That's not like a thing I have experience with in college. I wasn't having to like make creative works to be graded or critiqued by my classmates. So I felt like there was maybe some critique of that system going on in this book, but I am too dense to understand it. And then in the third part, something that happens in the second part, I don't want to spoil it because I think people will probably like this book, and there's interesting things that go on here, and there's definitely some twists and stuff. Maybe not twist, but like surprises. But something that happens in the second part becomes like the main focus of part 3, like the main antagonist in part 3. And then there is a big reveal that reminds me of a particular book, but I will not name, because I'm afraid if I name it, the people who have read that book will know, it will spoil the twist for Bunny, and the people who have read Bunny, it will spoil the twist of the book that I am thinking of. So I'm not going to mention it. This is such a roundabout, weird way to talk about this book. But yeah, so like, I liked it. Okay. It's 3.5, so it got rounded up to 4, like overall. I really liked the first part, and it just kind of steadily got kind of worse / more boring as the book went on. And then the last 30 pages, something crazy happens. And that was like a couple of interesting pages. And then like the last chapter, I was just like, okay, that's the end, I guess. Yeah, and it definitely kind of has like that literary fiction kind of air to it, which is just like not my favorite. I was expecting it to be weirder. And you know, it also kind of had me thinking about My Year of Rest and Relaxation by, I don't even know how to say her name. It had me thinking about that because like, I don't know why something like this, which in theory seems like something I should like, it's weird. There is like plot to it, but why I don't like this, and I do like My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Because that's like very internal, and there's like no plot, and there's no like motivating force necessarily. You're just like learning about a depressed woman. but like those very internal parts of this I didn't like. And like the floweriness of this I didn't like, but I liked My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I don't know. I don't know what that says about me. I don't know what I want in a book, apparently. Anyways, so yeah, this is gonna be, well, technically a 4 for me, but greetings from the basement closet. It is very late at night. It is almost 11 p.m. on May 21st. Yeah, May 21st. I finished listening to Pride and Prejudice. That ended up being an audiobook listen for me, which was very interesting. I was kind of reading along, but I just didn't care that much, so I ended up listening to it in audiobook form. I could only listen to it at 1 time speed, which also was very interesting. There is an audiobook on YouTube that was really good. Karen Slaughter was the narrator, and all the voices she did for everyone was just really good. Anyways, I had ended up listening to like over half of it just in audiobook form, and that just ended up being what worked best for me. I think mostly because like this is pretty much like a straightforward romance book, and I don't really read romance, so it didn't really grab me in the way that like Jane Eyre did. But I will say I totally get why people are still reading this, why they love it. I do think it was pretty well written. There was some interesting turns of phrase and things like that. And you know, at the end, you know, I wanted Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth to get together, and there was sweet little moments and stuff. So like, I totally get why people are still eating this up, you know, hundreds of years later. Hundreds? Yeah, like hundreds, right? I don't know. I don't know when Pride and Prejudice was published. Anyways, so I get it. It's just not the type of book for me. So I gave it 3 stars. But I will say, when coming to the conclusion that this was 3 stars, it actually ended up making me lower my rating for Wuthering Heights, and I gave that 2 stars because that definitely was like a whole star less enjoyable than the Pride and Prejudice experience. And I had a lot of trouble like finding a way to make Pride and Prejudice work for me, but once I figured it out, you know, I felt things, and typically it was mostly annoyance with Mr. Collins and Mrs. Bennet, the mother. But you know, writing a character that is actually fun to hate, you know, there's something to that as well. So yeah, like it was slow going, and there were a lot of the times I was just kind of bored. But there were parts that I had fun, and it was typically hating on Mr. Collins' bullshit and just being completely floored by Elizabeth's mother's audacity. Yeah, I am gonna watch the movie tomorrow. I've never watched it, the 2005 edition. Maybe I'll do a little check-in after that and tell you how I feel. But I don't think I'm gonna be reading any more Jane Austen. I think I'm gonna stick to my Charlotte Bronte. And yeah, unless y'all can convince me, does she write things other than romance? If she's only like a romance like writer, if she like pioneered the genre, I'm just not interested because that's not my cup of tea. But maybe Emma? I don't know if Emma is like on par with Jane Eyre. In that it's about like one character and her life and things like that. If that's got wild twists and turns in it, let me know. Hello, it is May 24th and I have finished Klara and the Sun, and I did not have a good time. I am hoping I can keep my thoughts in a coherent manner and not talk forever about this book. But I am just so incredibly irritated. Part of the irritation, I think, is just like, I have not read a lot of good books this month, and that is starting to get on my nerves. the other part of the irritation is just this book. It has irritated me. So I have never read anything by this author before. I had never heard of any of his other works, but I had seen this floating around. I thought the cover was beautiful. It has a sci-fi setting, and I was like, okay, I can get down with that. I started it and I was like, okay, this is a little slow. It didn't grab me immediately, but I understood what the deal was. And there was some like vagueness about the society, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be more like, I don't know how I want to describe it, but I kept thinking of movies like, what is Fly Away Home or something like that, where the girl has to like build a plane to fly with Canada geese. Those types of movies that are supposed to be like people overcoming some sort of hardship, and it is just trying to make you feel something. And I was like, okay, that's what this story is going to be. It's just going to be a heartwarming narrative about a girl and her robot friend, and the greater sci-fi narrative doesn't matter. And I'm like, okay, I can get down with that. And it seemed like maybe it was going to be a slow burn. And I was like, okay, the last couple books I've read have been really engaging from the start, but the endings have been so disappointing. So maybe I need a really good slow burn where, you know, it's just all right in the beginning, and then by the end, I'm crying my eyes out. That is not the book I got. As the book continued to go, the vagueness really started to get on my nerves, because it seemed like the author was trying to hint at some sort of nefarious something going on. Something was being kept from Klara, the AI. Something was being kept from Josie, her human companion. Something was being kept from the reader. But we weren't getting any answers. And it was so far spaced between like these little hints that I was like, I don't know if this is supposed to be world building, if you're actually trying to hint at something. And so I was getting frustrated. 100 pages left, so like 200 pages in, a big reveal happens, and I hated it. And the last 100 pages were straight up torturous for me to read. And the vagueness didn't stop. I thought once we got this reveal, we would get more answers. And sure, we got some answers, but there was just so much that was just so vague. It was just so irritating. I'm not saying it has to be fully fleshed out, but it was just like, I didn't know what they were talking about half the time. Like, Klara would just be listening to these conversations and telling them to me, but I'm like, I don't know what the fuck y'all are talking about. So I don't know what this is supposed to mean. So it just got, the last 100 pages were straight up so hard to get through. Like, I considered DNFing it. I was having such a bad time, and I never DNF that late into a book. If I have reached the 100-page mark, I'm gonna finish the book. The only thing I can think of that I have read further than that and DNF'd was the fucking Midnight Sun Edward Cullen retelling of Twilight. So like, yeah. So there was one scene near the end, I'm not gonna get into specifics, but it was supposed to be like this heartwarming scene that takes place in a closet with a window that just infuriated me. It made me so mad. It was not heartwarming. It was infuriating. Yeah, I didn't have a good time. Didn't like this. Didn't get the emotional read I had expected. I talked to a friend when I started it, and she was like, oh, I'm expecting it to be sad because the author, but I was not sad. I was infuriated. Did I tell you the rating? I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I'm pretty worked up right now. You would think it's a 1 star. I will say I thought the beginning was pretty decent. So while it was slow in the beginning, looking back on it, I enjoyed it a little more than I thought. So I don't know. It wasn't like burn this book, it's god awful. Like, the writing is good, I think. It really fell apart at the end for me. Hello, it is May 27th and I have finished Remina by Junji Ito. That's another book that my husband had in his collection, and so I read it after finishing Pride and Prejudice because I didn't have the brain capacity to read anything else. It is described as an unknown planet emerges from inside a wormhole, and its discoverer, Dr. Uguro, christens the body Remina after his own daughter. His finding is met with great fanfare, and Remina herself rises to fame. However, the object picks up speed as it moves along in its curious course, eliminating planets and stars one after another until finally Earth itself faces extinction. Is the girl Remina the true cause of the catastrophe? A masterwork of horror by Junji Ito, unfolding on a universal scale. And that's basically like the whole first chapter is like literally that description, and then things kind of go off the rails from there. I didn't love this, to be quite honest. The beginning of it it kind of reminded me of like a Sailor Moon like episode or something. You know how they like something cataclysmic will happen and then everyone starts going crazy. And you know, the Sailor Scouts figure it out at the end of the day. That it didn't get figured out at the end of the day. But that's what the beginning vibes were reminding me of. And then kind of in the middle, it felt very, I don't know, not misogynistic, but like there was just like a lot of violence against one woman that kind of made me uncomfortable. I mean, it wasn't like super graphic or anything. It just was like a lot, and I just like didn't love it. And this isn't body horror in like any capacity. I don't know. I didn't like it. It's got more of a sci-fi vibe to it. I didn't find it particularly scary, which I think is kind of up to everyone's own interpretation. So not to say it's not a scary story, it just didn't scare me in particular. And then at the end, wind became a thing again, W-I-N-D, just like in Uzumaki. So I don't know if that's a common thing in his works. But again, there was like riding wind going on, and I was just, I don't know. Anyways, I didn't hate it. It was fine, easy enough read. I'll give it 3 stars. Just not my favorite. Yeah. Hello, it is May 29th. Where is my phone? Yes, it is May 29th. I have just finished listening to The Great Gatsby. I bought a physical copy of it, and then I just could not get myself to read it. I started a new medicine that is making me kind of drowsy, so that was part of the issue, but part of it was also just like, I didn't want to read it. Anyways, so I listened to an audiobook version of it. It's fine. I don't think I actually liked this as much as I thought in high school. I have a very long friendship with a person who loves The Great Gatsby, and I kind of feel like I convinced myself that I also liked The Great Gatsby because she loved it, and I don't love The Great Gatsby. It's fine. I get why people would love The Great Gatsby. It and I think I maybe did like it a little bit more than I did on this reread in high school because I was insufferable and I wanted to be one of those people that loved the classics or whatever. So like I read Catcher in the Rye and I loved Catcher in the Rye. So like that was the type of person I was. So I think I kind of convinced myself that I liked The Great Gatsby. And you know, there are some interesting things in there. I don't think, you know, you're reading a story in high school. I don't think you're expecting vehicular manslaughter to occur. So like there are surprises in there that probably I thought were interesting in high school, whereas now I'm just kind of like not blown away by it. Even though I didn't remember jack shit that happened in this book. But yeah, I really don't have much to say about it. Like, it's fine. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I do think there's like beautiful language in here, but that's just like not my thing. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do with the physical copy of Great Gatsby that I bought. It was published in the 50s. It's awesome, like an awesome book. I am never gonna reread The Great Gatsby. I just know it. I'm never gonna reread this book. So I don't know what I want to do with that. Anyways, hello. It is May 30th, and I have just finished listening to Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is a memoir by Michelle Zauner, or Japanese Breakfast is her musical project band. 4 stars. I really can't explain why it's 4 stars instead of 5 stars. It's just a 4-star book. It's good, but it is incredibly heavy. What I expected from this book was to be kind of like a millennial memoir about like food memories and maybe like mental illness. I did not realize this was going to be a book about her mother dying from cancer. It is very heavy. It's definitely like food based, but it's not like as food based as I had anticipated. Yeah, I would just say that if you have experience with watching someone die from cancer and or caretaking for someone at the end of their life, to go into this with caution and just be aware of that. I don't necessarily think that you should avoid it. Just be aware of it. I don't think I would have picked this up to listen to if I had realized that. I was definitely expecting more of a lighthearted memoir, and have my own aversions to stories about cancer personally. So it was difficult. I really had to kind of pace myself. I think I maybe listened to too much of it today, so I'm feeling some sort of way about that. I should have maybe paced myself a little bit more than I did. But I mean, it's a great book. I just think you should be aware of that because I'm an idiot. I never read plot summaries. And I went into this blind, just kind of expecting it to be, you know, this is how I made it in the music industry sort of story. And that is not what this book is, in any capacity. I mean, she does, at the end, there is some of that, her making it in music, but like, that is not what the book is about. So yeah, I mean, it was a really good book. It's just, heavy. So yeah, that's my thoughts and feelings. Hello, we meet again. It is still the 30th of May and I finished You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Eric LaRocca, and I did not like it. I am sorry, this vlog has just been so negative, and I'm ending it on a sour note because that's like the last book that I can finish this month. 1.5 stars, so rounded up to 2 on Goodreads. This was so disappointing, especially because the very beginning got me so excited. I'm pretty sure they did this in Things Have Gotten Worse, where it starts with like an author's note, and the author's note is like setting this tone that this is like a thing that happened in reality and that it's being written by someone trying to document some sort of gruesome crime that happened in reality. So I read this author's note and it got me so excited. You know, it's this man and his boyfriend are like on a murder spree, and they're like killing other men, and they have like disappeared. And this is gonna be like documents from Martyr Black's like records, as well as chapters from a novella he wrote that was called You've Lost a Lot of Blood. And I was so excited, like it just got me, I was ready to go because that's like catnip to me. I love like a very interactive like book. Like I don't know how to describe these, where it's like collections of documents and they're trying to make it feel like it's this real thing, because I love going down like Wikipedia rabbit holes and things like that. I used to be very into true crime, and that started from reading about like the Black Dahlia was like the first true crime thing I ever really got interested in. And you know, I would read the Wikipedia and then I would go down like all these little rabbit holes. They're like weird blogs that, you know, happened through the 2000s that I would like to keep track of and go down the little rabbit holes and things like that. So you like, I really enjoy that, and I especially love it in a book where they're like making it feel like that. So I got so excited, and just the longer it went on, the more I hated it. Like, hate is a strong word, but like, it just didn't work for me. Like, the vast majority of this book is the novella that Martyr Black had written, and I just couldn't follow it. Like I just couldn't, I didn't like it, and I just didn't get it. It didn't scare me. It didn't gross me out. The more I read it, the less I wanted to keep reading it. And then like for a little bit, the like documents from Martyr were interesting, but I wanted more. Like I wanted more of that story. I think that could have been something, but even those bits and pieces like just weren't that engaging to me. They just happened to be more engaging than the novella story that was going on. I couldn't even tell you what was going on in that novella within the book. Like, and just like the reveal at the end of the novella I didn't really like, and I didn't really like the reveal at the end of the book at large. I don't know what I was supposed to get from it. So it's just really sad and upsetting. I was so excited to read this, and it just didn't work. I really hope I have a better reading month in June. Anyways, that's gonna be the last book for May. tomorrow I should be checking in and doing all my book stats and whatnot, but I need to do some calculations and things. Yeah, so I'll see you tomorrow. Hello, it is May 31st. We have reached the end of the month, so it's time for book stats. I am working on one more book currently, but there's no way I will finish it in the month of May, so it is time to do some calculating. So I read 16 books this month. In my last wrap up, I also read 16 books, and I had said that I don't think I had ever read that many books ever in 1 month, and somehow I managed to do it again this month. I wasn't even really trying, and to be quite honest, I thought I hadn't read that much this month. In my June TBR, I had said that I did not have a good reading month, and that is borne out by the facts. My average rating was 3 stars on the nose. No, 3 stars. Previously, February and March were also not great reading months for me, and those were 3.1 stars. So I didn't have a good time this month. So yes, read 16 books. I DNF'd 2 books. The books I DNF'd were Jawbone, which was a library book. I just could not get into it. And then the other one was The Sanatorium, which I also just couldn't get into. I DNF'd that one like on page 45 or something, so. Hi. While editing this, I realized I actually DNF'd 3 books in May, and the third book that I DNF'd was This Is How You Lose the Time War, which is the second time I've DNF'd it. I DNF'd it twice, back to back, like each month, the last 2 months. This was the audiobook that I tried to listen to, and I still DNF'd it because I didn't have a good time. So yeah, the average rating was 3 stars, and I was reading a book roughly over the course of 5 days. Nothing too crazy long that took me an inordinate amount of time to read. My longest read was Battle Royale, but that was also like 600 pages long or something. So that makes sense that it took me almost 2 weeks to read. I forgot to mention my favorites and least favorites books this month. So technically Heartstoppers were all 5-star, but I don't think that was my favorite read this month. I think Crying in H Mart was my favorite read this month. It was very sad. It was very heavy. I should have paced myself more, but I think that was the best book I read this month. My least favorite, both Klara in the Sun and You've Lost a Lot of Blood, I gave 2 stars. But honestly, You've Lost a Lot of Blood was more like a 1.5. Part of it is just like it was so disappointing to me. I was so excited, and then it let me down. So it made it hurt more. So I think, unfortunately, that is the worst book of the month for me. Anyways, so those are the stats, I believe, of the books I read. Yeah, I'm only carrying 1 book over from May into June, and that is How Long Till Black Future Month. I don't know how I feel about it quite yet. I'm really trying to give it a fair shot. It might end up being a DNF. I might have to try and find some other fantasy book to read in June. I will say I actually, in my June TBR, I said that my TBR stats hadn't gone down because I kept buying stuff, but I actually went back to my original May wrap-up stats and I listed what my numbers were at, and I have actually decreased the number of books on my TBR. So my physical TBR shelf had 19 books on it. I'm now down to 17. So I have added books, but I have added less than I read. So I have decreased the shelf by 2. And then I said that my Goodreads TBR shelf was at 125 books. And it is actually now at 120. So I am making a little bit of progress. So that's good. I love that. I will say I didn't read an Indigenous author this month. There was one Amazon Prime like first read book that I checked out specifically for the purpose of being my Indigenous author read this month. And I just didn't get around to it. I was too busy reading shitty books that I didn't like. So I don't have a set TBR going into June, so I can do a little bit more mood reading. I know I want to read horror stuff and I have some library books, so you know, those take precedent. But I'm not tied to like, I need to get these books read, because that was really dragging me down this month. Otherwise, those are the books I read in, what month is it? May. It wasn't a great reading month, but I read a lot, so I don't know if that's good or bad. That I read a lot of books, but they were bad books. Well, I don't know, bad books, but they weren't books I enjoyed. I will see y'all next week. Bye.